We live, we live, we live. Pep Talk UK, Pro Beez, once again, joined across the pond by the big man himself from the States, Bo from Free Kings Boxing. How you doing, bruv?
Oh man, I'm doing good, man. Glad to be alive. Great to be here, man.
Yeah, man. Do you know what? I kind of rebranded this show to the United Nations Boxing Show. The UK and the USA, the coalition.
The coalition, yeah. That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
It's crazy, man. Look, I'm looking forward to getting stuck in to the whole Terence Crawford debate and talking about the fight itself over the weekend, which, wow, very dramatical to say the least. But we're going to get the viewers to ask questions to both from Free Kings Boxing, and we can discuss the fight. But before we get into it, it's only right that, we pay homage to the two nations involved and play the national anthems. Bo? That's the American anthem now. For the British anthem,
play the UK anthem.
Save the Queen.
God save. Is that God save the Queen?
God save the Queen, man. Stand up, UK. God save the Queen.
I was just going to say somebody probably is standing up right now listening to this.
All right, we ready. We ready. Okay, so guys, get your questions in. We got to discuss Terence Crawford's win over Kell Brook. A statement it was. Bo, what was your immediate reactions to how the fight concluded over the weekend?
I mean, we had talked about it, man. We had knew that he was going to beat Kell Brook. Like, I think for me, the thing was the punch that got Kell in trouble. It was a jab that everybody gonna say, hey, it looked like it was a hook. No. Watch it. It was a jab because Brook was coming forward. Brook would look like he was finna throw the straight right hand because Crawford was fighting as a southpaw, and it was just a hard jab that clipped him, and that's the punch that got him in trouble. And Crawford took like he always takes. He took like the first 2 rounds to try to figure Kell out, right? As a matter of fact, if there's clips on Top Rank, if you watch it afterwards where he was talking to Kell, he was kind of explaining to things he saw and stuff. So. He took the 2 rounds, and he, once he got it, calculating his head, he started going at him, and like I said, that was the punch that got him in trouble. He hit him with a jab, a hard jab, and then he connected with a couple more punches. I thought the stoppage was premature because I felt that Kell was in trouble. He was in trouble, but. In a championship fight, you at least want to see a guy hit the canvas. Right now, when the first knockdown, when the gloves touched the canvas, okay, I got that. The gloves touched the canvas, you have to count that. But the second one he jumped in and stopped it, man, I think you gotta I just didn't see enough to me. And maybe because look, I'm a dude, listen, man, I want to see blood, right? It's a championship matchup. You know what I'm saying? I want to see blood. This guy, this is potentially Kell Brook's last hurrah. So I want to see blood, So I thought, I thought the ref might have been a little bit extra cautious, but I wasn't surprised at all, man. Listen, we said this that Kell Brook was, I hate to use the words damaged goods, but that's really what he was. I mean, we saw what happened. He was never the same after Gennady Golovkin, right? The difference between Errol Spence and Terence was Errol Spence was a mandatory. Terence Crawford actually picked Kell Brooks. But if he wasn't the same after Golovkin, he damn sure wasn't the same after Errol Spence. So I already knew. I was like, man, I hoped that Kell would put up, a good fight. But listen to Timothy Bradley talking about something. Anybody think this wasn't going to be a hard time? Don't know boxing. Okay, well, I guess nobody knows boxing because the odds maker even had him at a high percentage that, is down to not winning his fight. So Terence Crawford did what Terence Crawford's supposed to do. When you are the top pound for pound fighter of the world, arguably the top pound for pound fighter of the world, and you in there with a guy who supposedly is no longer in his prime. Kell Brook is an old 34-year-old, 35-year-old fighter because of the wars he's been in between Golovkin and Kell Brook. And I just think if this was a cash out for him, if this was a cash out for Kell Brook, then okay, fine. But it's hard because I know some people say he cashed out. Hey, 1.5 ain't enough for you to cash out. That's not enough for you to cash out. But I truly thought Kell thought he would win, but at the same time, I think when me and you was talking, we both knew that Crawford, when Crawford catch up to him, he was going to knock him out. So it was no surprise, and it was still a fight that didn't really do anything in my honest opinion.
Okay.
For Terence Crawford, I mean, it didn't increase his stock, and it definitely didn't increase it. It definitely doesn't increase his stock to me because Kell hadn't been at 147 in 3 years. So you're talking about a 35-year-old trying to get his body down to a weight that he hasn't been down to, even though he had all year to do it. I'll give him that. He had a long time to do it, but still, when you're that old and you're trying to get down there, and I think you can definitely tell how that kind of hurt him because the way he took those punches. Kell Brook before Gennady Golovkin, like the Kell Brook that fought Sean Porter would have ate that punch. He'd ate that punch that Crawford hit him with. He'd have ate that, man. As a matter of fact, even after Golovkin, he was eating some of Earl punches until the eyes start messing up. So yeah, he wasn't the same, man. But this is what I got from this fight is if Terence Crawford is going to make a move, now is the time to do that because you're not gonna get the fight you want to get with Errol Spence unless some shape, form, or fashion you over there with PBC. And we can talk about how jacked up it is, but at the end of the day, that's what all of these guys do. They make their in-house fights before they go to look outside. And I just think that right now, especially with what Bob Ayer's been saying, right now, I see Terence Crawford leaving, man.
He hasn't dismissed it. As we said last week, he's kind of left the door open for Al Heyman to come in and sign him up. But then Bob Aaron's saying, we spent a lot of money on you. Do we really want to renew also? So read into that what you want to.
Yeah, Bob said I could have bought a house in Beverly Hills for the money I lost on Crawford. Then I think he said something. Also, he says something to the effects of, I like the guy, but I'm not gonna go fucking broke trying to promote. So. He said he even accused Crawford of not even promoting himself. He said he gotta do a better job of promoting himself, like Teofimo Lopez.
Shakur Stevenson.
Yeah, Shakur Stevenson. Yeah, so pretty much Bob is like, hey, pack your stuff and turn in your keys and your ID as you drive out the park. When you get fired from the job, they tell you, man, turn in your ID and your passwords on the way out the gate.
Hey, but you know what? Back to Kell Brook.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people out in the States, maybe in the UK, are saying that Crawford should have won anyway. But nobody does that to Kell Brook, man. I at the time of the stoppage, I was like, what? I was actually shocked. I think I expected it to be a lot more competitive because Kell Brook is a tough, SOB. And early stoppages, I do not associate with Kell Brook. But I think for me, I respect Crawford even more because forget the age and forget who Kell Brook's fought before. It was wow. It was impressive. It was impressive.
That's the thing for me, right? If you do want to take that approach you're taking, you have to look at kind of like Gennady Golovkin, right? When you weren't supposed to be in the ring with him, you know what I'm saying? He he did what he was supposed to do. And yeah, that's what you have to take from this is at the very least, like I agree with on this aspect. It would have been worse for Terence Crawford if Kell Brook was to go 9 and 10 rounds with him. That probably would have looked really bad for Terence Crawford if Brook would have did that. People would have been like, hey man, because everybody already felt that, you know, he was a done Kell Brook or he was a past his prime Kell Brook. So the fact that, hey, you know what, he got rid of this guy in 4 rounds, I can see that being impressive to, you know, to a lot of people. Yeah, I can see that right there.
You mentioned a statement last week with Devin Haney, and you got lots of flack from some of the viewers. And my guy Hate Money was defending Devin Haney and saying, well, he boxed smart for 12 rounds. But, you know, are you saying what we saw over the weekend was exactly what you expected of Devin Haney?
Yes, exactly. And when the guy told me, he said he didn't take no punishment. Crawford didn't take no punishment in this fight. And look how impressive he looked. He didn't take no punishment. I didn't see Crawford take no tremendous punishment in this fight. And look how impressive he looked. And that's what I'm saying. Even if you want to say, hey, he did it against a done guy, but the thing remaining is that's what you're supposed to do, right? If you're in there with a guy that's passive, you're in there with a guy, and Kell Brook's not coming off of a loss or major surgery either. You know what I'm saying? Like you can make the case that this was a fresh Kell Brooks, even though you might, if you want to say he was damaged, but he was at least he was a fresh Kell Brook. Gamboa was coming off of a loss, right? And Gamboa is like 38 years old, and he was coming off of major surgery, and you went 12 rounds with him. Then that's what I'm saying. So in a situation like this, yeah, man, what he did is exactly what you're supposed to do when you're in there with a guy. Everybody say you're supposed to beat, and some people feel that they're past it. So yeah, most definitely. If Devin Haney would have did that in 4 rounds, even though we would have been like, it was Gamboa, but you still could have been like, yeah, but no one has ever done like, you know, like what you're saying. No one's ever done that to Gamboa. You know what I'm saying? So that's what, you know, he did exactly what he needed. He did exactly what he should have done. And I will give Crawford that. He does, when he gets you hurt, when he finally figures you out, he is a tough dude, and he's going to be on you.
Bo, before we get to the viewers for them to ask their questions, the trainer aspect. Now, I talked to Johnny Nelson from Sky about the formula. People argue that you shouldn't tamper with the formula. Long-term coach, along with his fighter that he's been in the game with for X amount of years. Was that a factor in his fight? Because some people have said that when Crawford was switching to a southpaw stance, that the right man in the right corner would have said to him, okay, be wary of this now. He's switching stances. Was that a coaching failure on the night?
You know what? That's a very good question, Pro Beez. I think that if you go into training camp and you go into training camp preparing for Terence Crawford, you have to prepare for him to fight lefty. So if we're going to say that, then we have to say, well, that started in training camp, because that's where you prepare for that. Isn't because it's no secret Terence Crawford can fight as a southpaw almost as good as he can fight orthodox. So going into training camp, you have to bring in some southpaw fighters so you'll know exactly what to do when you step in the ring against Terence Crawford, and he does make that move. So if they didn't prepare for that at all, period, if they wasn't ready, then that starts at the training camp. And yeah, most definitely you have to say it's a coaching error, because that's your job as the coach, is to make sure your fighter is fully prepared and have all the knowledge and tools he needs to win a fight. So yeah, most definitely. I think Ingles Ingles is a guy that he's a guy that covers all the details.
Yeah, he does.
He covers all the, I mean, no matter how small it is, like if you use the words "the" instead of "that," he'll tell you, no, it's supposed to be that. You know, he covers all the minor details, man. So yeah, Ingles would have been more on top of that than anything.
Yeah, and I can tell you this, and I said this to Johnny Nelson, who knows already, Dominic Ingle watches fighters, man. Yeah. He watches fighters, you know, so he would have pointed it out to Kell Brook that, look, he's going to start switching in between stances now. You know, you need to do this. Keep your lead leg outside of his lead leg. You know, when you're dealing with a southpaw. I mean, Kell Brook traditionally is good against southpaws, but you know, when you're in the heat of battle and someone's switching, sometimes your data might just start to get confused, you know?
Yeah.
But if you've got the trainer in the corner that's reminding you, saying,
constantly reminding you, switch, right, exactly. Constantly remind you, switch. You got the trainer in the corner. Well, pretty much, if you got the trainer in the corner that prepared you in training camp, you automatically know what to do. Like when he got hit with that punch, he was stepping in. Like he didn't even try to jab and throw the straight right. He was stepping. He was already within range to throw the straight right. He tried to step in more, and bow, got hit. So now if you're in training camp and you're training for that, like if you watch Floyd Mayweather, he's very good against southpaw. So, you know, in training camp, he would have gauged the distance a lot better than that in training camp. And that's why when I heard him not having Dominic Ingles, and I said it on the show, I said, man, that could be a problem because that's a guy that pays attention to every little freaking detail, man.
All right, guys. Bo from Three Kings Boxing's in the building. United Nations Boxing Show. Pro Beezy. Smash that like button. Subscribe. We're going to get into some of the questions from some of the viewers. All right. Straight from the top. All right. So Glenn Moulton says, Kell has never been the same since the GGG fight. It took too much out of him.
Yeah, he did. I think Kell Brooks gave his career away for $5 million plus pay-per-view shares in a Gennady Golovkin fight. And oh man, I really hate to say it. I don't put as much blame on Eddie Hearn as I do Kell Brook because he's the fighter that took it. But I do put some blame on Eddie Hearn because you kind of shorten that man's career, even though it was an opportunity you gave him. Like, I'm just saying that you had a guy come up to weight divisions in Kell Brook when you just probably should have tried to find somebody else that was 160 pounds. But I get it. You was trying to save the pay-per-view, but you took one of your top guys in Kell Brook and you pretty much threw him in the ring and you lured him in the ring with his highest payday and pay-per-view shares. And that shortened his career tremendously because who knows what Kell Brook we would have gotten against Crawford. Who knows what Kell Brook we would have, like, you know, you can make the argument we may not have heard of Errol Spence if Kell Brook doesn't take that Gennady Golovkin fight. You know what I'm saying? like PBC may not be dominating the welterweight division if Kell Brook doesn't take that Gennady Golovkin fight. I'm just saying those are arguments you can make because Kell Brook at that time he was a good welterweight at that time. A lot of people consider him to be, you know, because that was when Floyd was there too. A lot of people consider him to be a very good, you know, he was like right under Floyd. He was Floyd, Manny, and then people was talking about Kell Brook as like the top 3 welterweights of the division at that time. So I think you gotta, I mean, the fighter got to take some blame because Kell Brook accepted it. So he got to take some blame. And once he went to 160, that was it. Once you move up like that, your body just don't go back. You just can't, you know, unless you're 20 some years old, you can't jump up 2 weight divisions like that, then be like, I'm going back down. Nah, you can't do that, man. And yeah, you know, like I said, I put a lot of that blame on Eddie Hearn, man. He lured him into that fight with his highest paid pay-per-view shares, but at the same time, he kind of traded that man's career by, you know, trying to get him his highest payday. So, oh man, Kell Brook, like I said, before Gennady Golovkin, Kell Brook would have ate that punch from Crawford before Gennady Golovkin. Because like I said, even if you watch the Errol Spence fight, he was eating the punches from Errol. It wasn't until his eye swole up in the 11th round, but he was eating them same punches from Errol. So now he was never the same after going up 2 weight divisions. And then after having to get his body back down to 154. And remember, he actually missed weight for one of those fights. Kell was never the same after that, man.
Wow, you heard it from the man himself. Bo from Three Kings Boxing. Guys, smash that like button. United Nations Boxing Show. The UK and the USA, baby. Stars and Stripes. Okay. Okay, so Bo's is saying Kell might take another kamikaze payday. He's got a Swan Song fight left. Now, that Swan Song fight, I've been hearing from people, potentially could be Amir Khan in Saudi Arabia, which for both of them is a nice little earner.
That fight is like 7-8 years past due. That fight, man. That fight is like 7 or 8 years, past the expiration date. Like when you got milk and it says don't sell after this day, and you go to drink that milk 2 weeks after that day, like you open up your refrigerator and your refrigerator smells like, what's that smell in my refrigerator? Like that fight has marinated that damn long, and it's not a good marination like wine. It's sour marination. It took that damn long, but I don't have a problem if these two guys want to fight and they can fight in Saudi Arabia. I'm not gonna never tell a fighter, any fighter of whatever of any kind, what to do. About their ability to go out here and make money, because once you leave this sport, boxing is a vicious sport, man. It will eat you up and spit you out. And Adrian Broner said that. And it's a vicious sport. When you're in the limelight, they love you. When you're no longer in the limelight, it kicks you to the curb. I mean, we got so many fighters we know who have injuries and things like that. They suffer from boxing that we don't hear about. Nobody even wants to hear about because nobody cares about it. So I wouldn't have a problem if those two guys can get their money over in Saudi Arabia. Go ahead, man. Go ahead, get your money. I'm not gonna watch it, but you know what? Go get y'all money.
Hey, some people say they ain't gonna watch it, but I'll be honest with you. If those two start trash talking in the build up and there's a lot of spice in the lead up to the fight, I'll bet you some people will do a little cheeky purchase, to watch the fight. You'd be surprised.
Yeah. No, I can tell you, I know I'm not gonna watch it because that's a fight I wanted to see. When I say I'm not gonna watch a fight, I'm really not gonna watch a fight because that's a fight I wanted to see back when both them dudes was like at the top. Like when both of them was with Eddie Hearn, there's no way that fight should never happen, right? And I'm not gonna blame Eddie for that, right? I think that was more Amir Khan. Amir Khan has it seems, and I could be wrong, but he has a deep dislike for Kell Brook. Like he don't want to help Kell Brook get a payday, whatever, and he might want to do it now only because, it's like you said, he can make some money on it, whatever. But, I could see people having some interest because it will provide finally, like you'd be like, finally some closure. So I can see some people watching it because they're like, finally some freaking closure. On this fight, like Jesus, because the one thing you hate is the what if conversation. We have that lot box, like, what if Mike Tyson would have fought Riddick Bowe? What if Mike Tyson would have fought Ray Mercer? You know what I'm saying?
Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe, also as well.
Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe. What if Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe would have fought? So you have a lot of those conversations. What if Floyd Mayweather would have fought Joel Casamayor or Asalina Fuentes? Or Prince Nassim Hamed, so you have a lot of those conversations, and that would be one that we can at least close the book on.
All right, you guys, smash that like button. We're going to talk about Kell Brook versus Terence Crawford and where Terence Crawford goes from off that tremendous victory against Kell Brook. Okay, so Glenn Mountain saying Brook versus Khan still has interest over here, I think. We kind of covered that already, but who knows? A bit of social media back and forth tweeting and I don't know, some words over social media could make that fight a bit exciting. It could get people hype again. Twitter does a lot of things.
If there is one guy who could promote that fight the way it would make you want to watch it, especially over in the UK, and that's Eddie. Right? Because Eddie has that charisma. He has that way of words. He know how to put some spice in the gumbo, sort of as we say over here. He know how to spice up, pepper up the gumbo a little bit. So Eddie will be talking like, these guys are supposed to fight, and and he'll edge Khan on talking about somehow, oh, you just got beat against Crawford, you got knocked out in 4 rounds, and I can see Kell Brook like, yeah, but you quit against him. You know what I'm saying? So. I can definitely see
you can see the angle. You can
definitely see that angle, man. And Eddie's the dude for that because he's a you know, whether you like the guy, you don't like the guy. Me personally, I have no feelings. I don't. That's not who I am. I don't care. I judge everybody fairly, right? It's not about like or dislike. I judge everybody fairly. But when it comes to talking a fight up with those type of angles, Eddie Hearns he can talk. You know, like a lot of people here in the U.S. would say, man, most of the Brits can't slick. Eddie Hearn can slick talk. He's learned from the best. Okay. That man can slick talk his way into a lot of shit, man.
I could just imagine Eddie saying, Amir Khan, Kell Brook, apples on pears. What more do you want?
Yeah.
999.
All right. You know, I can. You're right. I can see him saying that. I can see him saying, Amir Khan, Kell Brook. You know, both these guys, long time rivalry. One guy quit against one guy. The other guy got knocked out by him. But can they beat each other? You know, like styles make fights, mate. Styles make fights. You know?
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to go through your questions. Brit MK2, just a shame he's 33. Bob won't get his money back before Bud cashes out. Terence Crawford. Contract situation.
Yeah, I think Crawford himself says his contract is up in a couple months. So sometime in 2021. You know, it's a situation. And again, I know people are not gonna like this. And that's fine. I understand, because the business of boxing sometimes is hard to understand when you're on the outside looking in. And I'm just gonna tell you this. When Errol Spence had that car accident, Bob Arum himself said, and he put it out there, that's the reason why. Matter of fact, it was Pep Talk UK. It was my man right there, Pro Beez, that was sitting in Bob in the limousine. I remember that. He was sitting with Bob in the limousine. And he said, because remember after the Khan fight, he said Al Heyman don't want to make the fight. So Pro Beez asked him about that, and Bob said, no, what I said was that I would call Al after the fight. I called Al, and I can't tell you what we discussed, but I can tell you that there is a very good chance the fight will happen in 2020. I've been guaranteed that fight will happen in 2020, right? And that's what he said. So, but Earl has the car accident and then the pandemic. And I think that's kind of what ruined that. That's why we're in the situation we're in right now, right? Because Earl has the car accident. Earl would have fought Danny Garcia if he didn't have the car accident. Then he probably would have fought Manny Pacquiao earlier part of the year in 2020. Then to close the year, you probably would have seen him in Bud. But Earl has a car accident. Then the pandemic hit. Everything gets pushed back like it did, right? So now you're looking at, maybe you're not looking at Crawford Spence until maybe 2022, because after Danny Garcia, if he gets past Danny Garcia, then he's going to look at Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah, look at Manny Pacquiao's fan base.
Yeah, I mean, why not? You'd be crazy not to. Profile. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you'd be crazy not to have all three belts, right? Then after you fight Manny Pacquiao, then you'll probably either get Sean Porter or Keith Thurman. You're going to get one of those. Okay, you're going to either get Sean Porter or Keith Thurman, and then that's it for Earl for 2021. For 2021, that's going to be it for him. So then now you're looking at maybe early part of 2022 of Crawford, if Crawford is still with Top Rank. See what I'm saying? And the reality is Earl has a lot of options, because if he fights Manny Pacquiao, let's say he beats Danny Garcia, he fights Manny Pacquiao and he beats Manny Pacquiao. Do you realize the gauntlet that Errol Spence just ran? Errol Spence just fought Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, and Manny Pacquiao. That's one hell of a gauntlet. You know what I'm saying? Like and then Manny Pacquiao, beating Manny Pacquiao alone is enough. Like Earl could start talking like how we hear Crawford talking about something. I'm gonna make the Hall of Fame without Errol Spence. Crawford could be like, Earl could be like, man, I just beat future Hall of Fame and Manny Pacquiao. Not a lot of people can say that, right? So I just beat this future Hall of Fame Manny Pacquiao. This is, without a shadow of a doubt, the best welterweight with the best record right now that's still fighting. And you can't say he's a done fighter, because look at what he just did to Keith Thurman, and I beat him. So, Crawford need me more than I need him, because I got options. So, man, but I do want to see the fight, though. I'm not going to sit here and play. No, I definitely want to see. I think these guys will fight. I think they will fight. But I could also see them not fighting at 147 and maybe colliding at 154.
Okay. Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Crawford has entertained going to 154 before in hopes of probably fighting Patrick Teixeira. Well, Teixeira's about to fight Brian Castellano. And Castellanos a PBC fighter. Right? So if by the time 2021 rolls around, the end of 2021 rolls around, a lot of those guys at 154, Jarrett Hurd is getting too big for the division. Charlo, he'll probably be undisputed, but he'll be getting too big for the division. Who else is red? J Rock, he'll probably, try to, move up because he's getting too big for the division. So I could see both of these guys grabbing belts at 154 and then meeting each other at 154. I could see that happening if it don't play out the way it should, because if Crawford's not gonna wait, because I'm just, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm telling you, 2021, I see Errol fighting Manny Pacquiao and either Thurman and Porter before they look over at Terence Crawford. The only way Crawford gets looked at is if he is a part of PBC. Then he'll get looked at, and like I said, we'll probably get him early 2022. But outside of that, those options that Errol have right there on the table, and you can say, hey man, he's stalling Crawford out or whatever, but you can't deny those are still good fights. You know what I'm saying? Danny Garcia, Manny Pacquiao, maybe Keith Thurman, those are still good fights. So but I want them to fight. Let me make they need to fight. These two dudes need to face each other and fight. I'd rather see it at 147, but I could see it happening at 154. If you look at how things are playing out, you could see it kind of happening at 154.
With Terence signing for PBC and Al Heyman.
Yeah, because let's say if Terence does like the Gary Russell thing where he signs a fight-by-fight contract, then he might not get it the way he wants, because Gary wanted Leo Santa Cruz and Al Heyman in his business. But why would I sell you a guy that I investigated when you only on a fight-by-fight basis with me? You win, you can leave. So unless Crawford signs like a 2-fight deal, boom, he got it. If Crawford signs a 2-3 fight deal, oh yes, he's most definitely fighting Errol Spence. Because what you do is he has one fight, he fights Errol, then we do the rematch. You know what I'm saying? But if he signs, okay, I do a fight-by-fight basis, well, you're not getting one of my top guys.
It's a business, baby. It's
a business, man. And listen, they all do it. It's a business. They all do it. Jeff Horn had a co-promotional deal with Top Rank to fight Manny Pacquiao. And so you ask, well, why do that? Because if my guy loses, I still have control of what you do with that belt. So when Jeff Horn beat Pacquiao, immediately we all knew he's fighting Terence Crawford.
Yes.
Right. And then once
that was so predictable. Yeah.
Right. And once he lost to Terence Crawford, we go back to Australia. Same thing with Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker had a co-promotional deal to fight Andrew Ruiz for the vacant title. He fights Andrew Ruiz. He has a title defense against Huggy Fury. He has
Fury,
right, because Bob Arams, and he's old school. He's one of those dudes that he doesn't believe you're a true champion until you make a successful title defense, right? So just like Jeff Horn fought Gary Cockroach or whatever that dude name is. But he had a successful title defense, right? So when Crawford beat him, he beat a legit dude that won the title because you had a successful title defense. So he fought Huggy Fury, then he fought, Anthony Joshua. Now where's Joseph Parker at right now? Emmanuel Navarrete. Emmanuel Navarrete signed a co-promotional deal to fight Isaac Dalbay, right? He fights Isaac Dalbay. He beats Isaac Dalbay, and he has, now his fights are being promoted by Top Rank. But Isaac Dalbay, who had a co-promotion deal to sign with Top Rank to fight Jesse Magdaleno, he loses. Where's Isaac Dalbay right now? So he does that so he can control, the movements that you make after that belt. And it's business. You invest thousands and thousands and hundreds and thousands of dollars in these fighters. You don't do that just to watch them get beat and watch your investment walk out the door. Nobody does that, man. If that's something you guys okay with doing, then please give me control of your bank account.
All right, we're going to engage the viewers. All right, Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King, I know that's not the real one, but big up yourself anyway. Yo, yes, Pep Talk. Everyone smash the like button. Indeed, smash the like button. Check out freekingsboxing.com.
That's right.
Subscribe to Pep Talk. We here, the UK and the US of A. Stars and Stripes. All right.
Hey, I want to ask, man, how's everything going with the lock? Because I know you guys on lockdown. And Tunde Ajayi is acting like the lockdown. I'm watching him on I'm watching his videos. I'm like, this dude acting like the lockdown is not even going on, man. So how's everything with you and the family doing this lockdown, man?
Yeah, just kind of keeping, things quiet. We've only got 2 more weeks.
Okay.
So I'm in no rush to do anything. I'll just wait the 2 weeks and then get back out there. But just chill time, time to plan future moves, All right, guys, smash that like button. We're going to engage with some of your questions. Listen, guys, Mike Gent says, listen, guys, what's your thought on a co-main event fight? What did the Nevada Commission do with the TV cameras? Didn't even Bob Arum was fuming at the decision. So the fight before.
Maloney.
That's right, yeah, Maloney and Franco, Joshua Franco. I think he wants to kind of know what happened.
Maloney got screwed. I can tell you what happened. He did. Maloney got flat out screwed. He got flat out screwed. Listen, Franco beat him the first time. He beat him very convincingly the first time. Maloney had a better game plan. Maloney wasn't a stationary target. Maloney wasn't just being recklessly aggressive. He actually was using his jab. He was using his footwork. He was giving this dude angles. Okay, he was setting traps. He like the things he should have did in the first fight. He did in this fight.
He boxed well. No doubt.
He boxed very well. I give it to him, right? And the fact that you can see on every camera angle, it wasn't an accidental headbutt. Even if you want to say it was the shoulder, but the shoulder is not the head. So if he hit him, was punching and in the clinch, he got hit with his shoulder. Well, that's not an accidental headbutt. And if that guy has to stop fighting because he can't see, right, then that is a TKO. All right. But to say accidental headbutt and then say a no contest, no, man. Maloney got robbed, man. He got screwed. He got screwed big time, and that's wrong. Like listen. I don't care who you are, where you're from, man. I'm all about the sport of boxing, but that's wrong. Maloney got robbed, and that had to be a devastating, hurtful feeling to him to jump up on them ropes, scream up and down, thinking I've regained my title. You know what I'm saying? I've got to regain my title, only to hear them say that. No, man, Maloney got robbed, and I hope they do an immediate rematch because that boy got robbed, man.
You trying to say? You remember what happened to Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels came around? Vince McMahon went over to the bell.
Yep. The Calgary screw job. Yeah, right. Yeah. So I mean, Bob was right to be upset. Because the thing was, and I think in that situation, they could have used instant replay to watch it to see what it was. They had the instant replay, and for whatever reason, they wouldn't call it. They just wouldn't call it. And that's the part about it that makes it so wrong. Is like, okay, it's one thing if the ref makes a mistake. Okay, I get that. But when you have the instant replay at your disposal and you don't use it to correct something that's wrong, that's even more like, That's why people feel like the system is corrupt. Like, how do you not use the replay to be like, okay, like there was no clash of heads that I saw that because I think he hit him with a jab and it might have been like a little, it might have glazed him where, the thumb might have caught the eye or something like that, right? But you can clearly see the eye started swelling after that hard jab that Maloney threw at him. So even if you want to tell me, okay, they butted heads or butted shoulders, but the eye started swelling initially from a punch. You see what I'm saying? So no, man, I feel like, cause listen, man, and it's funny because I'm not high on Maloney, but Maloney went back to the drawing board. He prepared, and he came and for him to prepare like he did, and to see that much of a difference in who he was from the first fight and then to get robbed like that, no, man, that's wrong, man.
All right, guys, smash that like button. We here, United Nations. Okay, Brit MK2 Kell got done with a jab. Those metal plates don't make your face stronger. They make it worse.
Any type of operation on your body, period, is particularly your face, is always gonna you're not gonna have the same that you used to have, because of the face has all those sensitive veins and tissue, and you know what I'm saying, all them tingling sensations. So anytime you have operation on your face close to your brain and things like that, man, or where you have like you have all your most tender and sensitive ligaments and limbs and tissue, yeah, it's gonna have a different effect on you. That's why I'm saying that jab should not have hurt him the way that it did. And if you go at any Kell Brook fight before then, Kell Brook would have ate that. He'd have ate something like that. So, yeah, I mean, you have to, like, surgery, major surgery period changes who you are as a fighter. Period. Mm-hmm. Like Vasyl Lomachenko just had major surgery on his shoulder, and he's what, 32, 33 years old. So, you know, I expect I expect you to see a little bit change in him. You know, you know, if you rupture your Achilles heel, you're never going to have the basketball players who rupture their Achilles heel or blow out their knees. They never have the lift that they used to have. So major surgery of any kind on your body, it will not make you the same. If you're younger, you're able to bounce back better. But when you're older, when you're older, it's very, very difficult for you to bounce back. You can adjust to it moving forward, but you don't bounce back to where you was before that surgery or accident.
At the point when he got hit with that jab, okay, he was buzzed, all right? Kell was buzzed. Some people said that he should have found a way to hold, but I find that kind of impossible because he was buzzed so much that he didn't know where he was. So he's not in the right frame of mind to hold in the first place. Mm-hmm. Is that something you'd agree with?
Not only was he buzzed, but also you're talking about a guy who's one of the best finishers when you have your hurt in boxing. That's Terence Crawford, who immediately, when he got buzzed and Brook went back, Crawford didn't close in on him as in smothering his punches. Crawford maintained his distance and launched more punches at Kell Brook. So even though you're buzzed and you try to find, because remember, he turns and actually goes toward the rope because he got buzzed so hard. So when you turn back to try to find, like, when you're buzzed, and you lose sight of your opponent, your natural instinct is to look to find your opponent. It's not to put your hands up or anything like that. So he tries to look to find Crawford, and he get hit with more punches. So no, man, it's impossible to hold a guy who, when he has you hurt, he's going to keep you at the end of that distance, launching punches at you, man.
Okay, guys, get your questions in. All right, boss is saying Crawford has his plate hard in Brook's skull. He was pulling the same face when GGG broke it.
He was, wait a minute, what? Say it again.
Basically, what he's saying is Crawford pushed the plate into Kell Brook's skull. Oh, and okay. He's saying he had that same kind of look, you know, when he fought Triple G. One thing I did notice earlier on, I did see a bit of swelling on Kell's eye, probably second round. And I noticed his right hand was up quite high and he was wincing a bit. And I was on the live watch along, I was saying, he's conscious of the eye at the moment. Mm-hmm. I can see that memory is still there.
Yeah, you know? And that makes you a different fighter. That makes you a different fighter, man. Listen, when it's one thing to get hurt as a fighter, right? It's another thing to have to stare down possible life or death situation as a fighter. Like that GGG, I'll give it to him. He stared down a life or death situation because, like you said, his eye was jacked up and he did it once. So it's one thing to get buzzed and get hurt as a fighter. That's not that won't bother you. Like, you can overcome being hurt and being knocked out, but it's another thing to be in a life or death situation where you may not ever be able to see again, let alone fight again. See what I'm saying? So it's that's harder to get over than anything. So yeah, once he got clocked in that eye and it just stung just a little bit. Whatever moxie he might have had in him was depleted immediately. Because the one thing fighters can't think like how regular people like me and you would think, right? Certain situations, me and you're gonna think about our families. You know, we're gonna think about our kids. You know, we're gonna think about stuff like that. Fighters can't think about stuff like that in that ring. They just can't, because if they think about stuff like that, that's what makes them quit and give up. That takes away from them being the fighter they need to be to overcome certain things. You know what I'm saying? So they can't have that thought process. And when you have that thought process of my life, my future, and all of these things, or things I haven't done that I still want to do, when you have those thought processes in your head, it's gonna take what you need out of you to overcome that moment. And that's what you saw in Kell Brook when he reached for that eye. He went back to that moment, like you said, but he also thought about the rest of his life in that moment. And I'm sorry, man, you're only willing to do that maybe once. Seldomly, rarely are people willing to do that twice. So, you know, and if that's what he did, I'm not mad at him. There's no shame in that at all, period. There's no shame in thinking about your life and your future and all that, because at the end of the day, man, we all want to live.
100. All right. Darren Odgen saying, who's next for Crawford?
It depends on what's going to happen with this situation that's taking place with him in Top Rank right now. Because Bob is talking like, I'm done spending money on this guy. And I mean, in less than 12 hours from telling us that Terence Crawford would beat both Danny Garcia and Errol Spence the same night, telling us that, oh man, you know, Crawford would knock out Errol Spence in the same fashion he did Kell Brook, which I don't know where he gets that from, but okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, unless, like, the only way that that's true is if we saw the Danny Garcia fight and Earl was taking a butt ass whooping, then I can see it. You know what I'm saying? But so he says that. And he goes, Crawford could have competed with the Roberto Duran's and the Sugar Ray Leonards of the welterweight division. Oh, you went from that to I could have bought a house in Beverly Hills for the money I've lost on this guy. You know, it's not a question of will he sign again. It's a question of do we even want to keep him? You know, so for me, that situation is gonna have to get handled first before we see before we can even talk about anything going forward with Crawford. We got to see that situation, because remember, Brian McIntyre actually held on to the contract for Brook for like almost 3 weeks before he turned it in and signed. See what I'm saying? So yeah, man, you know, when you're not getting the big fights you want, when your promoter's talking the way Bob Arum is talking, before you make any moves going forward, that situation has to get settled. So the next couple of weeks we'll find out, before we can even say what's next for him. That situation with Bob Arum has to get settled first, because Bob is literally talking like, you know, pack your stuff, turn in your badge to security on your way out the building, and you know, thank you for your service. That's literally how he's talking, man.
Could we see a situation where Al Heyman steps in to Crawford and helps him to get his way out of his contract before the expiry? Because it all doesn't seem well between both parties at the moment.
Al Heyman has done it before. Richard Schaefer. He jumped in with Richard Schaefer, snatched up, you know, hey, Richard, I got you. I got your legal fees. I'm paying all this stuff right here, baby. Give me all these fighters, right? That's how he started PBC. He did it with Floyd Mayweather. He helped Floyd buy his contract when Floyd was with Top Rank. He helped him buy that contract. So he did it with Floyd Mayweather. So yeah, I could see a situation where Heyman's hands will be on this. And honestly speaking, if you listen to what Bob is saying, like when Bob said there, you know, he very well may leave. Right? Bob, listen, man, Bob is an old fox. He's been down this road before. He sees, like, Bob is like an old fortune teller. He will see this shit happen before it happens. Okay. You know, So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a situation where they may have been talked, that Al Heyman may have a word might have been shot past him or said to him, you know, and we're not hearing about it. I wouldn't be surprised because, like I'm saying, man, less than 12 hours of what Aram said in the ring, and then the very next less than 12 hours, 12 hours later, he said this. So, man, something happened between that time frame that got pretty ugly between all parties involved.
And what is your pay-per-view over there? Is it $80 for a pay-per-view fight?
Yeah, 70, 80. Certain areas is 70, certain areas is 75. Yeah.
Well, you can imagine for Spence versus Crawford, ching, ching, ching.
But you know what, though? Hold on, let me say something, man. You know how many more people would buy that pay-per-view if it was only $40? I mean, I get it. They want to sell at the highest dollar amount, because if you sell it for $70 and 300,000 people or 400,000 people buy it, like you said, ching, ching, ching. But what if you sold it for $40 and then now 1.4, 1.5 or 2 million people buy it because it's only $40? You know what I'm saying? But you know, I digress, man.
What about $9.99?
Yeah.
All right, viewers. All right, you've been very patient. You know, we kind of get fully into the whole talk. We try and get the viewers to have their say as well. So, okay. Guys, this is from Mike Gent. What's your thought on the result? Okay, no, we're past that. Sorry, we're past that. We answered that question already. All right. Damn Good Beats Productions. You make hip hop, R&B, whatever. But anyway, welcome. Bro said he took a dive. LOL. Hell yeah. He dove in a shark-infested water. So
they trying to say that Kell Brook took a dive?
Well, that's what Damn Good Beats is saying.
Yeah. The point of a dive is to not make it look like you're taking a dive. And Kell Brook is not a fighter that I would even associate with something like that. He has too much respect for the sport. He has too much pride in himself as a fighter, right? So I don't believe Kell Brook took a dive. I do believe Kell Brook wanted this fight. He took the fight because, you know, you can make the case that, hey, man, you know, it's a money thing or whatever the case you want to make it is. I don't believe he took a dive, but I know what my man is saying, though. He's saying that Kell took a dive, and because I saw the comment when you put it up there, he dove in shark-infested waters. He's saying, yeah, he dove right in there against Terence Crawford and got his butt kicked. People always call when you're freaking doing something, man. It always never happens, man. So yeah. But no, man, Kell Brook, no. But I think Kell, I guess he don't have to split any of that money. Now, this is what I heard with a promoter, because he didn't use any promoter when making this deal. He kind of did this deal himself. So if that's true, you know, good for Kell. That means he only has to pay the taxes on the 1.5 and not give his promoter money, then pay taxes. So he'll get more of the chunk of the money if that's true.
All right, guys, get your questions in. Smash that like button right now. Subscribe if you ain't subscribed. Remember, check out freekingsboxing.com. In the building, the UK, the USA. We here.
Always, baby.
All right, Damn Good Beats, hip hop, 100%. We love a bit of hip hop. Okay, so GV Universe, Bud beat Spence, too skilled.
Yeah, that's actually I don't have a problem with anybody saying that Bud beat Spence or Spence beat Bud. My only problem with Bud is Bud has a tendency to fight down to the level of his competition, because iron sharpens iron, right? So if you have a blade that's sharp, but you don't continue sharpening it, you let it sit, then it will get dull. Versus a blade that's continuously getting sharp, because the fights that Errol Spence is having is sharpening his skills and improving his skill level and ability versus the opponents that Crawford is fighting is not increasing anything about him at all, period. But at the end of the day, the skill set of Terence Crawford cannot be denied because of what we've been seeing. So anybody that wants to say that Crawford beats Spence, I won't have a problem with that. I actually felt, and I've actually said, if they was to fight, I would have picked Terence Crawford, but it would have been a higher margin of victory. Now I think it's more of a 50-50 fight, but that could go down swinging anybody favor depending on what we see in Danny. Because if Errol Spence goes in there and he dominates Danny Garcia, then it could be 50-50 or it could be advantage Errol Spence because look at what he did against a guy like if Errol does to Danny what Crawford did to Brooks, then you have to give Errol the advantage because that's Danny Garcia. You know what I'm saying? He's not a damaged fighter at all, period. That's Danny Garcia. Nobody's ever done that like that to him. So, but no, man, I don't have a problem there. Crawford does. He has all the skills. He can fight orthodox. He can fight south. Like, he got too many things you have to prepare for when you go to fight him. So, yeah, most definitely, man. Listen, if you was to ask me who has the advantage right now, I'd say 55-45 Terence Crawford.
Wow, you heard that from the man himself. Bo from Free Kings Boxing backhand. Why have America stopped producing legends at heavyweight when there's so much talent and champions at lower weights?
Put that up there. Let me see that one.
All right. Boxing backhand.
Why have America stopped producing legends at heavyweight when there is so much talent and champions at lower weights? All right. I agree with you about the talents at the lower weight division. The welterweight division historically has been the workhorse, in my honest opinion, of the sport of boxing. Historically, the welterweight division is the workhorse of boxing. The divisions, once you get past 147, and as a matter of fact, after heavyweights, people normally would talk about heavyweights than 147 welterweights, and then whatever else. But the two division that primarily would produce the most amount of money was heavyweights because they were big men, and then welterweights, right? But when you look at the heavyweight division, the reason why we don't produce as many great heavyweights is because of look at how boxing is today. Boxing in today, especially heavyweight division, is all about the knockout. It's all about if you got the right hand, all you got to do is be able to knock a guy out, right? Be big and tall, and the ability to hit somebody and knock them out. And that's kind of what we sell is the knockout. Like that, it's commercial, right? So the knockout is very, very commercial because that's what you want to see in the heavyweight division. Is not, man, I don't like you want to see guys get hit and get knocked out. That's the reason why when Vladimir Klitschko was, even though in his era he dominated, but it was an unexciting era because you know what I'm saying. He did a lot of boxing and things like. Even if you look at when Tyson Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko, nobody talks about that. What do they talk about when Anthony Joshua beat Vladimir Klitschko? Why? Because that was a freaking war. These guys was going at it and they was landing bombs, right? So, and Tyson Fury, normally his fights are boring. You pay attention to him now because of the whole Deontay Wilder thing, but he did a lot of boxing and that's what he was looked at as being boring. Even when you look at Floyd Mayweather, what do you hear about Floyd Mayweather? He's a boring fighter. Okay, Andre Ward, he's a boring fighter because people want to see the knockouts. Devin Haney went 12 rounds on the undercard of Logan versus KSI. Devin Haney boxed beautifully for 12 rounds and got booed. Why? Because people wanted to see the main event because they knew it was going to be a knockout. It was going to be a war. So that's the reason why. And it's not just the heavyweight division. And probably throughout a good majority of boxing. The little guys for me, like when you get to 112, 115. Those are the dudes because they make fights. They're exciting. They're all action and they fight each other. Ain't no contract drawn out. Ain't no we gonna wait. No, ain't no marination. Nope. Them boys get it on and get it in, right? So I love those divisions like the 115, the 112, the 118s, and the Naui Noe, Ordine Okubalis. You know what I'm saying? Although it's a fight that I enjoy for personal reasons. I enjoyed Roman Gonzalez and Kaya Fai. I enjoyed that fight for personal reasons, but Estrada and Gonzalez is now about to fight. We had to build up. Bam, now we get to fight. So those are the fights. I think the lower weight division never gets enough credit. I think the last lower weight division guy was able to get credit like that was like Michael Carbajal and Salvador Sanchez and those guys, man. But the lower weight division should be where most of the fan base of boxing should be able to look at and focused on more, because those guys, not only do they fight, but they give you the most exciting fights that you'll ever see.
Okay, but essentially, how come, apart from Deontay Wilder, how come there's no notable American heavyweight out there at the moment?
I don't think a lot of them even train. I don't think. See, a lot of these fighters, I don't think they live the fighter's life. I think a lot of these fighters is all about, you know, the glory before the hard work. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of it is glory, and then, you know, there's so many things you can get lured into, you know, besides going into sports nowadays. So many things you can get lured into, but I definitely think the a lot of these guys don't, like, you got Adam Kalnaki. Okay. And then he just lost to Robert Helenius.
Yeah, that was a bad defeat, man.
Yeah, that was a bad defeat, but that was a bad matchup too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't have put Adam Kalnaki in at Robert Helenius. He, you know, he's very expensive. You know, you got Efe Ajagba, but Efe Ajagba just looked bad in his last fight. You know, he won, you know, but he looked bad in his last fight. You know what I'm saying? And you know, so a lot of these guys don't, like, they don't stick around, and a lot of times you have a situation where guys only fight a handful of amateur fights and then they just automatically turn pro. So they don't do the, you know, they don't do the Golden Gloves, then small tournaments, and then Olympic trials or World Game trials to get that level of experience. When you look at, like, Andre Ward and Floyd Mayweather and even Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, the guys, they have hundreds of amateur fights. A lot of these guys are looking at, like, Deontay Wilder. He didn't start till he was 19 years old. And that's what you're seeing. Guys coming over as football players, like Gerald Washington, the guy that fight Deontay Wilder. He was a football player, you know, that became a boxer. So they come from another sport over to boxing. These not guys that grew up doing boxing because they look at, like, hey, man, we can make more money over here. Then they turn to boxing when it didn't work out over there. So, I mean, those are a lot of things that really has a lot to do with it, man.
Okay. Right, guys, smash that like button. Bo from Three Kings Boxing in the house with Pep Talk UK. Remember, subscribe if you ain't subscribed already. All right, Ross. Not Rick Ross, but Ross. Michael Hunter is the best American heavyweight. Actually, we missed out on that. Michael Hunter is extremely talented, right? Hold on, where's that question? Where's it gone?
Yeah, I want to hear that one.
That's a very good question.
Yeah, it is. When he started out with Michael Hunter, he got me like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we missed out on that one. Michael Hunter is here it is. All right. Michael Hunter is the best American heavyweight I can think of right now, apart from Wilder. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Michael Hunter is a very, very good heavyweight. I think he went down in weight to fight Alexander Usyk after being out the ring for 2 years, and he had a damn good showing of himself. The thing with Michael Hunter is promoter, and that's another thing that happened to a lot of these guys, man. The promoter, they don't get with the right promoter. He's not with the right entity to help boost him, and if he does get with the right entity to boost him, right, can that entity compete with what the heavyweight division has been stacked up to be right now with just 3 guys, Wilder, Joshua, and Fury? So you're going to have a hard time breaking into that gauntlet. But Michael Hunter is a very good, skillful freaking heavyweight, man. Very freaking good, dog. And I'm like, Michael Hunter, if he's focused and he stays on track, he's on right now. Michael Hunter's a problem. You know, I mean, there's a reason why nobody's even mentioning him right now. Because, like I said, if he fights Usyk at heavyweight and he went out the sport for 2 years, he give, like, the Usyk that fought Derek Chisora, Michael Hunter beats that Usyk. And I know people are gonna say, "Oh, but Usyk beat him." Hunter was out the ring for 2 years, and Hunter came down to fight him at cruiserweight, right? All right, but if he fights Usyk at his natural weight, because the Usyk that fought Derek Chisora, that's the Usyk that Michael Hunter, if he was in the ring with him, would have beaten, in my honest opinion. Because Chisora was landing punches. I'm like, man, Usyk don't normally get hit with this. What the hell is going on? You know, so yeah, no, Michael Hunter, he's an exceptionally very good heavyweight, talented, has skill, It's just a situation of him getting with the right people that can, push him and put him in a good position.
100%. And you saw his performance against Povetkin almost a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a performance.
Yeah, it was.
Really impressed me. First half of the fight, I thought he was excellent. And I thought he would have. I thought it was only a matter of moments before he closed the show. But Povetkin has got those powers of recovery, man. And it was a draw.
Yeah,
but brilliant fight. I might watch that again this week, actually.
The Hunter let him off the hook. That's what, that's why I say focus. Hunter's one of those fighters that he will lose focus. Like if he's in a rhythm and he's doing it, and he's not being challenged, it's not working for him, he loses focus. And that's what you saw in that Povetkin fight. He lost focus. Like Hunter's one of those dudes that needs their coaches hit him. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. You're giving away too many rounds. Like he one of them dudes, he needs that. But yeah, like you said, man, if you watch the first half of that fight, like, oh my God, like Jesus, this Usyk beat this guy,
Crazy. All right, guys, get your questions in. Remember, smash that like button. All right, Gerard Miller's good. Do you rate him?
Gerard Miller, we don't know how good he is until he fights and he's not on the PEDs. Because the thing about Gerard Miller was his motor, and for a big man, he had Gerard Miller had a motor like he was a middleweight. He was a 300-pound man with a motor like he was a middleweight. You know what I'm saying, or even a welterweight even. So I can't rate him until I see how he is off those pads. But I will say this: the skill is there though. The skill is definitely there. The skill for him was definitely there. But what hurt him was the PEDs, man. I mean, here's the thing about it is when you look at the heavyweight division, period, is we're just now getting, like, think about how low the heavyweight division was before Joshua and Wilder came along with their rivalry, right? And then look at the possible future of the heavyweight division. But look how long between Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson, all those guys, up until now, we had in the heavyweight division. We had literally nothing, and the Klitschko's, although they did dominate, but they wasn't the fighters that were, the type of fighters that were appealing to bring fans out to want to watch boxing. The welterweight division carried the sport for a very long time. So if you look at the excitement when you're looking at the heavyweight division now and the excitement going forward, look how long it took in between that time frame. So, that you can definitely make the case that the heavyweight division has been dry for quite some time. So it's not just an American not producing no legends. The heavyweight division has been dry for quite a while. I mean, you got Pulov, who's 30-something years old?
38, yeah.
Yeah, 38 years old. You got these older guys still hanging around, man. That should tell you how dry it is. You got these older guys still hanging around. Like if you had an influx of young guys and they were killers and they was dominating, these old dudes wouldn't be hanging around like that, man. I mean, look at football. The only position where you see guys hanging around is the quarterback, because it's the least position where you take the most amount of punishment. But you don't see no 40-year-old running backs still out there running the ball.
That's a good analogy. Okay, guys, get your questions in. Kell Brook, Terence Crawford. What did you reckon? And what's next for Terence Crawford?
Oh, I already said that. First thing is he has to solve that problem with Bob Arams. He got to. Before you look to do any fight, you got to solve that problem with your promoter, because a promoter saying something like that, that's the kind of talk that you hear before a fighter goes into a fight. He gets a draw or shady decision, like Manny Pacquiao did against Jeff Horn, like Timothy Bradley did against Diego Chavez. You know what I'm saying? Like Miguel Cotto had to give them concessions to fight Manny Pacquiao when he was the champion. He had to give all these concessions to Manny Pacquiao. So, he just needs to be careful that you resolve that issue first before you look to do anything moving forward as far as boxing.
All right. This is a very good point here. And referring to Kell Brook and Terence Crawford, Damn Good Beats Productions. Big yourself up for joining. Kell was actually winning. It was the finish that it was the finish that I feel was needed. That's what he said. But he was saying basically, I think on the scorecards, it was very close. 2 judges had it close. And I think one had it favoring Crawford. But they're saying that, well, I think he's trying to say that Kell was doing well up until the finish.
Yeah, I think I even heard some people say they had it going into the 4th round. They had it 2-1 Kell Brook going into the 4th round. Yeah, because Terence Crawford Terence Crawford was collecting data on Kell for the first 2 rounds, and then once he got what he needed, we saw him. He started to turn it up. But I don't have a problem with the judges' scorecard because I actually thought that a case could be made that Kell was up 2-1, leading into the knockout. If Crawford wouldn't have knocked him out, then it would have been 2-2, and I believe Crawford would have probably went on a nice little run. So, I in that situation, and like I said, I actually felt was one of those. If you went 3 Kings Boxing, Prodigy of Boxing podcast with me and my man, the owner and editor of 3 Kings Boxing, my man 2K, was talking. I said on there, and I said, man, I don't know, man, because Crawford talking about leaving. I mean, this might be a good chance if Brook can make it to 12, man. Crawford, we might hear we go to the judges' scorecard and we go get that draw, that robbery, baby. So, but no, man. Yeah, no. I thought you can make the argument that Kell was up 2-1 going into the 4th.
Just a question from me. So when Kell got hit with that jab, he was throwing a 1-2. But again, trainer's strategy. Should he have been throwing a 1-2 with a guy that had turned southpaw? Because you deal with southpaws with a right hand, right?
Straight right hand.
So again, was that a tactical error from the corner, not giving instructions?
It was a tactical error from the corner. It was also a tactical error from the fighter. If you watch Marco Antonio Barrera, he was very good at being able to use his jab and land his jab on you against a southpaw fighter. Teofimo Lopez actually was doing a decent job of landing his jab against the southpaw Vasily Lomachenko. I remember when Marco Antonio Barrera fought Hassim Ahmed, he was able to land that jab. Some fighters, Floyd Mayweather even. Some fighters are Floyd Mayweather though he did more launching of that straight right hand than he did of the jab. Some fighters are just they're able still to get the jab off. I mean, you got to throw it. You can't just go right hand crazy because if all you're giving this guy is something to look at is the right hand, then he's not going to worry about it. It's an easy fight for him, the southpaw fighter. So you got to throw that punch to give him something to look at. But I think Kell's problem was gauging the distance when Crawford turned southpaw because he kept stepping in, getting hit instead of gauging distance and knowing how to, okay, I ain't got to step in, or when I punch, I step in instead of stepping in first trying to punch. And that's the difference in the training that I believe Dominique Ingalls would have definitely gave him than who he had, then what's his name he had in this corner with him.
And against Sean Porter, when Kell would be throwing the 1-2s, he'd be pulling back after. He was on the balls of his feet.
Yeah.
Again, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, guys, get your last few questions in. We're almost out of time.
Yeah, you got like about 5 more minutes for me.
We've got 5 minutes left. Get your questions in. Smash that like button. Subscribe. freekingsboxing.com.
That's right.
Log on, man. They got all the latest articles and stories, man.
I got a story for everybody. So I remember the first time I reached out to my man over here, Pro Beez, right? So I reached out because I seen them on television with Angela Hepton. I know you remember her.
Yeah, Angela.
Yeah, Angela. Yeah. So I reached out to him and I asked for an interview. I said, "Yo, man, I wouldn't mind, interviewing with you guys." And Pro was like, "All right, man, cool. Because that's what I had, Truth and Facts." He's like, "All right, cool, man. We're talking everything like that." So I said, "Well, so who I be talking to?" So he sends me a picture of him and Anthony Joshua, and I'm like, "No, man, that's that dude Shabazz. I want to do Pro Beez." I thought you was Shabazz.
Oh, you thought I was Chaz? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you was Chaz, man. Because remember, I was like, no, I want to do an interview with Pro Beez. You're like, that is me. I said, oh, I thought that was Chaz.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Big up Shaz though, my guy.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah. From the beginning
Chaz
to
is
right
like
now.
Al Heyman of Pep Talk. He's in the background. Like this Chaz, he's like the Al Heyman of Pep Talk, man.
All right, guys, smash that like button. We're gonna take a couple more questions,
Sure, go ahead.
and then we out. All right. So, Ski84 says, to be honest, if he had better footwork, he would have been a great. I think he's talking about Kell Brook, maybe.
Kell Brook had the potential to be a much better heavyweight. I mean, much better welterweight, and be remembered in a much better light than what he's remembered for now. Kell right now, I mean, regardless of what you say, after what I saw, Kell Brook, you have to, and I think he only has 3 losses, but you have to look at him as a journeyman. Like, I don't see him beat none of the top guys after that performance we saw. And I think the one thing I go back to is that fight with Gennady Golovkin. That fight shortened a lot of years. I mean, that fight actually killed a career. He was undefeated. Okay, he was looked at because Floyd. I think Floyd had retired at that time. I'm not if I'm saying it wrong, but I remember I think Floyd had already walked out of the sport. What year did he fight GGG? 2017 or was it 2016?
2017.
Okay, so yeah, Floyd had retired in 2015, and everybody was saying that the top welterweight that time was Kell Brook because he was the only one that hadn't had a loss, and he was the longest reigning champion, I think, at that time, right? Because once Floyd left, because Floyd had the WBA, the WBC, and the WBO. Once Floyd left, all those belts was vacant. So everybody looked and said, hey, by default, Kell Brook is the top welterweight because he's been the champion the longest, right? And at that time, his resume actually was better than Thurman's and even Sean Porter's, who later on, they went on to have the fights they had, but up until that point, they hadn't had no type of fights at all. And he fights Gennady Golovkin, and everything changed. Everything changed. He gets severely hurt and injured. He has to have surgery. Then, before he can take a tune-up fight to test himself, well, he's thrusted into a fight with Errol Spence because Errol Spence was the mandatory. Then the other eye gets messed up, and he goes into surgery. So he was, Kell Brook would, like, the story of Kell Brook would be different right now if he doesn't take that Golovkin fight. And that's my honest opinion. You will never change my mind on that.
All right, last question before we out. This is relating to Deontay Wilder. Now, the Fury fight has been moved from December the 5th to next year, potentially January. Is it because Deontay Wilder's won the mediation and the legal issues are ongoing to enforce the 3rd fight with Fury?
It definitely seems that way because it's kind of ironic that Wilder and them came out with talking about going to a mediator and arbitrator, and then all of a sudden you hear that Tyson Fury is moving his fight from December 5th to January. One of the reason why I said I didn't think the fight was going to happen, because I'm like, man, the UK is on lockdown. I don't know how you're going to prepare or be ready for a fight of this magnitude by December 5th. I just don't see it happening, right? So you can look at that, and if that's the case, if Tyson, like, let's say it's not because of the Deontay Wilder situation, then Tyson Fury has a lot of explaining to do, because the reason why he claimed he didn't take those dates of January and February when they was first introduced to him was because he wanted to fight this year. Then that strengthens Deontay Wilder's argument that he purposely let time run out and didn't take the offer to skip not fighting me till the contract would expire and end. So it's going to be interesting. I think it might have been Eddie Hearns I heard say, but somebody from UK, I think it might have been Eddie, said it best, that this is going to be a longer process than people think it's going to be. And he, and it very well could be, but I'm not dismissing it because, like I said, it's kind of ironic that the minute this came out, you move your date. That's kind of ironic. But it's all, but it strengthens Deontay Wilder's argument that the fight didn't have, for whatever reason. It strengthens their argument that you didn't like. If it's because of Wilder's paperwork, you should have went on and had your fight December 5th, because you reason why you didn't do it because you claimed that you wanted to fight this year. So if you're telling me you canceled this fight to fight in January, which is what the networks was offering you to fight, that strengthens Deontay Wilder's argument, man. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens, man. It's really gonna be interesting to see what happens, man. Listen, you know, however you look at this, or however you do this, there's a lot of blame to go around, in my opinion, everywhere. Deontay Wilder, he shouldn't have been like, after like you know, it's funny when you're a vocal fighter, right? And you lose and you go quiet, that's a bad look. And it really is. Like if you're talking trash and somebody beat you, you go quiet. You got to expect everybody to jump on you. Like, oh man, where you at, dog? You had all this to say. You know what I'm saying? You had a lot to say, dog. You know, and then Tyson Fury, in my opinion, didn't do himself no favors by trying to make it look like, oh, Wilder team them turned down 2 dates when no, one was the coronavirus, the second one was your promoter wanted to have fans in the stands. You know what I'm saying? And Tyson Fury history also of not going through with rematch fights also is something that's, you know what I'm saying, that betrayed him. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, man. And I honestly believe that Tyson Fury just probably felt like this is a useless third fight because of the way I beat the guy. And I honestly feel he thought that way. So I'm interested to see what's his reasoning behind not going through with the December 5th fight. If it's because he suffered an injury, like it has to be something where we can be like, okay, I could see that. I could see that being a legit reason. But if the reason is nothing other than, you know, I didn't have time, I don't really have time to prepare for the fight. Whew, I don't know, man. I'm gonna be glued. I'm gonna be glued to every piece of news, man.
All right, guys. Remember, check out freekingsboxing.com and catch up with all the latest goings on in boxing with Bo from Free Kings Boxing. Subscribe to Pep Talk. Smash that like button. We've had a fabulous time tonight, guys. The United Nations Boxing Podcast. Hey, we out, ya. Thank you.